All right, I believe we're live now. So it's been a while since I've had an opportunity to address many of you. Today will be a live video, and for probably about 30 minutes, possibly a little bit longer. To start with a few introductions, I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com. I work with around 700 to up to 1,000 clients a year. Many of you became familiar with us in our office throughout the pandemic. That created a very unusual situation where we had to work with a lot more people than we generally would because of the evictions and the chaos and inflation and housing markets going crazy. So today we're going to be doing some updates and looking at kind of peering into this year, 2023, and kind of telling you what to expect, what's going to happen, success rates, and how we're handling vouchers and clients and also landlords. So the first thing I want to do is tell you guys, I hope everybody had a happy holidays for those that celebrated. I know today is my birthday, and after this video, I'm making a straight shot down out to the theater to see the new Avatar. That was an epic wait. What was that, a decade? I think we all grew to a different age level, trying to get to wait for the new Avatar. So I'm excited to see it. However, I'm not confident I can sit in a theater for 3 hours straight. So I've got a list of things I want to cover real quick. And please do chime out. I mean, if you're on your TV, your phone, it's live chat. Ask questions if need be. I'm happy to answer them. So I think one of the first things I'm going to talk about is 2023 in which we should expect. This year, we are returning to the normal market when it comes to Section 8, low income housing, and affordable housing, and the attempts to get vouchers. Uh, for many, many reasons, it was slightly harder but easier during the pandemic to be able to get vouchers and at the later stage of it, but in the early stage, it was harder. So it was harder than easier. And then, of course, we know as of October 1st of this year, they granted around 30,000 vouchers across the market or US, which many of you utilized. I know that we had our highest success rate in our entire history, 22 years, as of November during 2022, especially around from October. So our success rate went to 98%. I don't expect us to ever reach that again unless some other horrific thing happens and we're overfunded because normally Section 8 and HUD and the federal government does not fund programs all that well. And of course, different presidents have different ideas about how they want to fund the federal budget. So 2023, it's no longer going to be really a voucher party. We still have a great number of vouchers around the nation. And so the warning comes like this. Every year, we go through a spring and summer period. Spring and summer are the most difficult times of year because a lot like most people, we're like ants. When we want to get something, when we want to move, we want to do it in nice weather, and spring and summer tends to be those times. The problem is it creates an exponential number of people. Think of a Black Friday sale, and then you got people waiting outside the door. So we have about 4 good months left where the market's still at its lowest peak, where you're still able to get out there, potentially get housing vouchers at a much easier rate, say about 60% easier. When we get to April and we start peering into the end of April, going all the way to October, so let's say April to October, it's going to get harder day by day. When we start arriving by June and July, that's when we reach the insanity peak of when it's the most difficult. Let's roll back to 2022 in the October when I discussed you guys in the market, HUD releasing enough funding to pretty much fund 30,000 vouchers. At that point, we still have a lot of vouchers left. That stuff will be dissipated and burned up by April, okay? If you're thinking about doing this and your efforts are not sufficient and you haven't been able to get housing or a voucher or absolve yourself from the problem of housing, then that would be the time to move. Whether you're working with our company or you're working with another company, do something because if you remain idly by and you choose to start April and May, June, July, August, and all that, it's going to get so much harder, and wait times are going to get incredibly difficult. So that's my advice that I give every year. I normally do it in December, but we had a complicated Christmas holiday, and so I'm now kind of delivering this, the 5th day of January. So, on some other side notes, Many of you know that I have a bunch of cats. I've got 22. It is what it is. I rescue them. Many times you've seen them in the videos. Not so much these days. We have a lot less time to communicate by video than we used to. Each year, it gets a bit harder to do the job, and because of all the complicated scenarios that happen. But the pregnant cat we have, I think she's due, and we thought it'd be for Christmas. Then we thought it'd be for New Year's. Well, she's holding out. She's fat like a little turkey, but when her babies come out, I'll let y'all see. And I'm praying there are just a few, so our office doesn't turn into a gymnasium of kittens and cats, because I certainly have enough at this point. I'm at my maximum level of cats and kittens. So, payment plans. Every year around the holidays, we do offer payment plans. We're going to be pulling back from that starting this month. If you manage to get into one with us, then that's fine. But the reality of it is, there's only 50% of people manage to make their payments on that stuff, and unfortunately, I can't pay my 2 employees with monopoly money, and so we cannot write off $16,000 in non-payment. People get a voucher and then they decide it's no longer reasonable for them to pay for the rest of the service, despite having a payment plan. And I'm not going to ruin. I'm not interested in sending people to collections over that at this point. So, new business hours. Most of you have become accustomed to Section 8 consulting and our company being open Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Because the way I set that up, it gave me space through 2022. But what it also did is it made me feel like I was always working. So this year, our hours as of standard now will be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday only. And then you're thinking, well, why are you not open the other days? What are you doing? Well, if we spend all of our time answering emails and shooting the breeze with people on the phone, then nobody's case would ever be taken care of. I literally have to have that extra time to do that. Besides some of the procedures and policies that we follow, we have Q&As, we have contractual agreements, we have client management system. All that stuff has to be done at some point. And to be honest with you, I'm getting a little bit tired of getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, only to be met with phone calls at 8 a.m. in the morning. So that's the reason the madness is we've got to make it more manageable. So clients can call Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. I'll likely return the calls in the afternoons because of appointments in the morning. The rest casework. And of course, if you want to see my head spin like that young lady in the Exorcist movie when she rolls down the stairs, call me on a weekend and see what happens. I will terminate a case. I'm not trying to be rude to anybody, but please don't mess with my personal time. There's another thing I want to discuss real quick, and I'm going to pull it up real quick. You will not be able to see this, but I want to discuss another video we're going to be talking about, and it's going to be about crime-free rental housing. Now, most of you may not be aware of what that might be. Crime-free housing is when a particular landlord or a housing authority goes in cooperation with the sheriff's department, the police department, and other agencies that are policing areas. This crime-free incentive, adopted by these buildings that may have potential prostitutes, drug dealers, and gang activity, most probably more around the project-based housing. This would allow sheriffs and police to enter the property, and if they suspect and even look at you and they think that you're up to no good, then would allow them to terminate your lease, possibly arrest you. A really clever way to call crime-free neighborhood is really just a legal way to racially profile people and use presumptions is really what it is. And I'm going to be issuing a dire warning about that you not move into any of those communities. If the landlord is unable to maintain his property and he's made such ignorant and bad choices, then that is the responsibility of the landlord. He should accept that bullshit and eat it. Okay? You can't have it both ways. You can't collect the rent check and also run a cartel out of your complex and then turn a blind eye and expect the sheriff's department to do it. So we're going to be discussing that and how not to deal with properties that do that. Same thing with housing authorities that implement those policies. Do not move in project-based housing that implements that stuff, because you will become a target and they don't even need you to commit a crime. And this is going on more and more often and across more and more cities across the East and West Coast. And that behavior is most egregious. If you're going to be a slumlord and you're going to run your property like it's a brothel, okay, then that's your problem. Don't go around and profile people. And this is a legal way for them to do that. And I don't agree with it. If you lost control of your property, then that's your problem. You don't make it the problem of innocent tenants, at least the ones that are innocent. So that's how I feel about that. And so I'm going to be addressing that in a singular video to ensure people that are trying to look. It's like this. If a person is waiting all this time to get a voucher and to move, why would they go in and want to move into a place where you're going to violate every civil right they have? That's called living in the county jail. Do you want to rent? You want to rent a room at the county jail? Because that's what it'd be. This is exactly why our clients, I and our clients, do not engage in putting people in project-based housing. But when you make the housing authority be the God that gives you a voucher, plus you make them your landlord, it means that anytime you have a problem, you're in servitude to them. They own your ass. Don't ever do that. There's no level that I've had to rescue more people out of that nonsense and have to turn tenant-based housing, get it converted over to a housing choice voucher to rescue innocent people that are living in a jungle of nuts. Okay, whether it's a trailer park in South Louisiana or it's a tough neighborhood south of San Francisco, nobody has to live that way except for those that choose to do it. Okay, let me address a few people here commenting real quick. Natasha, how are you doing this afternoon? Happy Earth Strong. Thank you. I've never heard that one, but we'll adopt that holiday. Pamela Riggs, she says happy birthday. For those that don't know, I'm only 45. That means I've got 45 more years to sit here and bump my gums on this video, annoy people, and hopefully our company can successfully get you a voucher. As many of you know, I make spicy videos. I don't always get professional. Anytime we're talking about a tough topic, we have the option to talk in monotone or we can keep it spicy. I like to add as much curiosity to the video as I can, rather than just being some boring middle-aged white dude making videos in order to educate people on housing. Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Sherpa, how do you get started low-income housing? How do you get started as a low-income housing developer? Well, as a developer or a landlord, your first objective would be you want to reverse engineer the thought of doing that. The first thing is you want to look at fair market rates, and you want to look at your SAM fares, a small area fair market rates, and you want to look at all the zip codes and see what they're paying. If it isn't worth the rent you're going to get from a voucher, if the people bringing you a voucher, if those vouchers aren't worth enough to cover the rent you want, then you don't want to become a developer in that zip code. So start with, does the housing authority actually issue vouchers that are valuable enough to cover your mortgage or your rent or whatever you need? If that passes the test, then of course you want to explore the different properties. And at that point, would you want to be a private landlord, single family, multifamily, and would you be designating that property Section 811, Section 202, or Section 42? These are all subsections of Federal Code of Regulation that fund and wield that property. So that'd be your beginning stage. I would suggest to you that also a CPO, a consultant, or somebody to my degree, be involved in a consultant in that respect, so you don't make some of the more egregious mistakes with being a new landlord and thinking you've got it all. And at least, but last, as the development part from ground up, I would suggest that you speak first, not with a consultant that's in my end, the tail end of this, but you'd want to speak with a 203K consultant that could apprise you of loans, grants, and other issues that may come along with the property, along with building process, codes, and regulations. Okay, not just consulting on how to be a successful landlord end of it, which is what I have. Moving on, beautiful brown Bay East. It's been a minute. Glad to see you back on the channel. And I'm going to take a sip of coffee and then we'll hit back on these comments. I just moved into my no-rise apartment with my voucher here in California. Thank you. Well, I'm glad to hear that. You know, it's always exciting when people get a voucher, and I'm glad to hear you're housed. Let's see. Timothy McDaniel Jr. Hey, guys. How are you doing, Mr. McDaniel? Let's see. Well, looks like... Okay, Timothy goes on to say, can I have a Section 8... Can I have Section 8 consulting on my next housing podcast? Well, Timothy, we'd be most honored. I tell you what, you can reach out to our office, shoot us an email, and we can discuss when it'd be a good time. And I'd love to correspond with you or on your podcast to discuss housing if you'd like. Natasha Niblett goes on to say, I have been renting a home since 2008 until the present day. My landlord is a slumlord, and it has been a nightmare. I would love to have a private conversation with him. Natasha, well, I'm going to put up some links for you to reach out to our company. Though I cannot offer services for free, I'd love to, but we do have very inexpensive appointments for 20 minutes, which in my opinion over the years, I believe that 20 minutes is the right amount of time to talk to people. If it's any shorter than that, then it's not enough. And if it goes over that, then it's likely no longer relevant. In other words, the factors that would change my opinion about how you'd handle the situation wouldn't be any greater or less if we went over 20 minutes. That's why I don't allow people to speak more than 20 minutes, because at that point you're just talking about everything else that's not that essential to the case. All right, so moving on from that, the earlier warnings in 2023, we're returning to the old market. Okay, guys, it's going to get tougher. You've got about 4 months to, decide what you're going to do and whether you're going to get in this market or if you're going to try to uh, pull this off during the middle of summer. Okay, lately we've been dealing a lot more with landlords, so there's more landlords than ever entering the market, and I want to talk about that briefly. We've been doing this over 2 decades, so I tell you that the number of landlords I see entering the market is a very, very good sign. It means that a lot of landlords at this point have lost their trust with normal job payers, and they're looking for a better way or a better return for their properties and interests, and they're at a higher caliber or a higher rate considering Section 8 tenants. So we're seeing probably about 180% spike in a number of landlords that are reaching out to us, and that includes landlords, real estate developers, banks, and other commercial entities, and real estate agents, brokerages, and private investment firms that are reaching out to our office for a number of different reasons. And I see that as a really, really good sign. It means that we finally have reached a renewal period that we've not seen in over 20 years. And that means a lot of good things for clients. I think at this point, we discussed at an earlier point about California. California, New York, New Jersey, Maryland represent a very big portion of our clientele because it's obviously a lot more difficult in those states. The report for Los Angeles and surrounding counties is simply this: they issued a vast tens of thousands of vouchers, many of which have gone unused. I'm suggesting, and I'm still advising at this point, those of you that are in and around the LA area, that you try to acquire portability and then probably live in a different county. For my New York friends, I would suggest to you that you utilize any help you can get before summer hits. New York's always a tough market the older you get, and with all the rent control out there and other agencies, I would say to you, my New York friends, it isn't as bad, but you need to stay on top of it. For those of you in Florida, I hate to say it, but if you're a Floridian, that state's becoming one of the leading states where housing and vouchers are becoming problematic. It's rising at such a high rate at this point that I am soon to call it being a situation where it will become worse than LA. Florida's a big state, and it has a high retirement rate, and a lot of those retirees were not wealthy people. And it's because of that and the housing shortages in the state combined with natural disaster has made the state of Florida kind of a ticking time bomb. They have very interesting rules and policies for the state. Okay. We're not going to get into politics because I service, it wouldn't matter if you're an independent, Republican, or Democrat. I serve everybody equally. I in fact, do not care who you decide to vote for. I'm just suggesting that Florida is going to be having a very difficult future. And so you need to be ahead of the curve with that. Those of you in Maryland, that's always been a difficult state, but it never reaches a boiling point in that state. So I would always suggest that if your concerns or interests with vouchers and low-income housing in the state of Maryland, that it was a pain in the ass all these years, and it remains one. It hasn't gone up or down really on the list, so I think you're okay. For my New Jersey folks, I think that the state of New Jersey is doing better. I think it's graduating, and it's I'm seeing housing results happen quicker and better than it ever has. So clearly, I think that New Jersey has taken a few notes from New York and a few surrounding states. Of course, Pennsylvania and other areas surrounding are always going to be easier places to deal with. Take another sip of coffee before I choke, and then we'll talk a little bit more and answer a few of these comments. Timothy goes on. He says, "Thank you, will do." Jack says, "I'm a landlord of 3 family tenants, and there are." Okay, you're a landlord. You appear to have 3 different tenant families for the past 13 years. You need to get a increase instead of the limited. Okay, I don't truly understand, Jack, the context of that. You may want to shoot our office an email about that, but I think you're trying to match the current fair market rates for rent and bring it up to date. So it sounds like you're not keenly aware of how to do that. Tip Harrison says, "Is there going to be an increase in 2020 voucher?" I think the voucher party is over, guys. I think that what they did in October was the last blast of vouchers. We're going to return to what it used to be, and it's going to be hard. Okay, guys. Let me clarify hard. Nothing about the system is easy. Okay, I've never once got on this video and decided to lie and say, you know what, it's going to be so easy. Give me a ring. We're going to call the housing authority tomorrow, and they're going to print out a voucher right then and there. It's never been that way. It's always going to be hard. I'm just suggesting that all this extra money is going to dissipate, and by April, it will be gone. So for those of you seeking housing and vouchers, you better do something now or suffer the consequences all the way till next October. If there is any reparations made by Congress or the Treasury Department to better fund HUD, then it will likely come later in the year, but we'll see. I don't see anything on the radar. I'm not seeing any cues or signals that there will be any further cash influx to fund housing from the programs they've already put in place. Beautiful brown baby's got her headphones on, and she's having a little coffee. Okay, so that's good. So I'd say, when you got serious questions, it's always better to reach out to our office. Clearly, we're not going to get independently wealthy from charging somebody $45. It is what it is. You probably make more than that for a muffin and a coffee at Starbucks. To be honest with you, I went over to Starbucks the other day. I was in Target, and I tell you what, I felt like I was making a car insurance payment. All I wanted was a minty coffee. I was kind of shocked. I felt like I had a Long Island tea, more or less, or at least paid for one. Timothy goes on, "I couldn't find your email, but I booked an appointment." Okay, Timothy. Well, we'll get you set up with an email and so on during the appointment if you want. The reason I don't market phone numbers and emails in these videos is because I already have half the country calling and emailing me. So we try not to, and of course, the wrong persons get a hold to it. Many of you have seen in live videos where I have people trying to sell Viagra, blow up dolls, and everything, especially our friends from Russia. A quick shout out to them for all the blow up dolls they attempt to sell in my channel. And then, of course, my Viagra sellers out of China. They come in and blast a bunch of links in here. They just need us to run down to CVS and get them a gift card. And I keep telling them no. And the more you block them, the more they keep coming back to the channel to sell those. Well, at this point, I believe their Viagra and blow-up dolls are on sale for both our China and Russian friends. They're getting tough times for them, too. Maybe I'll give them a blow-up voucher. Anyways, just to have a little fun with it. B-Cat. Now, I like that name simply because it includes the word cat. So B-Cat goes on to say, "Does a tenant have to be moving from the projects to get a tenant mobility voucher?" Well, you have invented a whole new name for the process of taking a voucher and moving it. So that will be called portabilities and moves. You would want to call it portability. And if you are in project-based housing or tenant-based housing or Section 42, which means it is housing that is subsidized rather than they're accepting a voucher, then you would need to convert your subsidy into a voucher. It's a bit of a process. If you utilize a voucher at a property, and then it would be reversed to gain the subsidy. Well, guys, it seems like y'all have very few questions, for a January bunch. So I'm a bit concerned. Uh, I think that there may be some upcoming changes to the HUD funding levels, but I'm still waiting because HUD issues directors reports, and we often get our hands on that within days of that happening. However, we haven't got one lately. But one good thing is we're in a new year, which means a new federal budget. When you're in December, they're already burning that budget. And looks like BCAT says are they limited? No, I don't believe that they're limited. Let's talk about a practice that news agencies have been talking about recently, like they reinvented the wheel. This is something that's been going on a long time. You get a voucher, uh, you can port clearly, and sometimes you can get a voucher and port to somewhere where there's a short waiting list. You think, well, why would you need a voucher before portability? Well, sometimes you're able to get housing vouchers, different types, uh, in a relatively short period, and then you can port that to other cities that have a better housing market, which allows you additional accommodations and modifications for those of you that are looking for a higher rent standard. Tip Harrison, if you have a voucher, can you move to any place? If you have a housing choice voucher or most vouchers, yes, you may move that voucher to anywhere in the contentious U.S., including Hawaii, Alaska, and Puerto Rico, as well as all 48 states on inland. So, yes, you may also take that voucher and you can convert it over to tenant based housing if you wish, but I would advise it because, as you know, tenant based housing, it's funded at the doorknob. In other words, the, the specific unit is funded, doesn't require a voucher. And of course, subsidies only pay 50% of the rent, where a voucher would pay or roughly 70% based on your income calculations. Well, guys, if y'all don't have any further questions, I'm probably going to close this up because I'm very eager to get to the Avatar movie early, blow all my money in the gaming machines if they have any, and then of course do like most people do, eat so much popcorn and soda that you're almost dizzy and want to vomit when you walk out of there. How times have you guys done that where you go to the theater and you overeat the popcorn and all that, and you feel pretty bad after you walk out the theater? Now, if you want to lie about that, go ahead, but let's just be honest, right? Uh, Angela Angela goes on to comment, I keep getting the runaround. I am pleading an abuser, and I was under the assumption that there was new vouchers for an emergency situation. Well, there are a number of reasons in which a voucher can be issued, and it can be based on different types of funding. And in your case, that'd be VAWA, or uh, domestic violence against women, and under its act could be funded. Yes. Now, whether it's not considered an emergency, that's completely contingent. That's contingent on your answers. So there are things out there. I think the misconception is you may fundamentally believe that that entitles you to a voucher tomorrow above other people. It does not. Being Surviving any kind of abuse clearly would give you a higher prioritization on a list, obviously. But that alone does not cure everything. Also, DV, or domestic violence housing, is not always the best type of housing. Okay, it's well funded, underutilized, but it's rather strenuous, and I don't recommend it for most people. So be careful which you be expedited, and it may not even be the best type of housing. Clearly, I've dealt with many different types. Well, everything on the market. I mean, there's nothing about Section 8 that I am not familiar with, except for CPO and 203 work, and that's only a small fragment. So I would suggest to you that VAWA and DV housing is not the top line. But it's good that you're bringing it up and you're considering that. Angela Mateo, thank you for acknowledging my question. Guys, if I missed your question, keep in mind there's a reason why I wear eyeglasses. And sometimes I miss the question completely. Okay. That happens. I don't need anybody to have a meltdown or a mental break over that, because that does happen sometimes. People, especially when I have clients that are suffering with paranoia and delusion, I get that. However, I don't want anybody to melt down if I missed your questions. So thank you for thanking me about that. But I also feel like I may have not addressed a few questions. And if I did, it's not intentional. All right. Angela goes on to say this was the only place I could get into the fastest. I enter on Christmas Eve. Well, I mean, sometimes you take one thing in preparation of another. Many clients opt to go after continuum of care housing first vouchers like rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, or emergency housing vouchers because they're quicker to get. And then they graduate later. Once they stabilize using one of those vouchers, they may end up returning that voucher and then trading it in for a standard housing choice voucher, which may be funded by other programs under Section 811, Section 202, and HOPA and many other programs that are out there that fund these vouchers. And so you're stepping up to a better grade of voucher. As you may know, not every voucher does the same thing. It doesn't administrate the same way. And there are longer lines for some vouchers than others. Some vouchers pay less. There's so many factors to be considered with this. This is why our friends that underwrite a lot of policies, procedures, and data manuals for housing authorities tend to write epic telephone books, which I have to sit here and go blind reading every year because they keep changing things, you know. And one neat fact for you guys, when you look at housing authorities, or you call them public housing authority, and when you get really good at it, this acronym of PHA, every single one of these operate like a different dentist office. Their policies, their procedures, everything, nothing's the same. Even if you had everything at the, say you were dealing with the Los Angeles Housing Authority, you thought you've got all their manuals, right? And you think you're going to use the same knowledge you have for that housing authority, for the housing authority in Tampa. Won't work. Completely different. That's what makes my job sometimes so twisting. And we'd like to do a quick introduction. Muppin is here. And he's only going to stay a minute because he's a tough guy. So he wants to say hello. He didn't get enough scratches today, so he's clearly upset by that. We do have visitors in the video. And occasionally I have little mama, my other kitten. She'll come and groom my hair. She always does hair and makeup and stuff like that. She's a good employee. So anyways, he doesn't like to be held, but I thought y'all might enjoy seeing him. Well, guys, any other questions you'd like to ask? And you know what? I enjoy skeptics. You can ask me anything verbatim out of Title 24 you wish. Any one of the subject matters, 16,000 pages, and I won't struggle for a moment. You will not see me reach for a keyboard. You won't see me stutter once. There's very few things I can't answer and can't quote verbatim. That's the difference between offering a video where we're offering tips and tricks, where we're an expert at honey buns and in the process of making a honey bun one day, then our channel's about being a children's party clown the next day. Then on Fridays, we're an expert at fidget spinners. And then now we're a master PhD consultant on Sundays. That's a difference. Where the topic and the range of what I do is strictly Section 8. I don't weave out my lane. And I certainly don't give advice about things I don't know about, okay? Just like when you deal with inclusion of housing that deals with assisted living and nursing homes, that's a Medicare funded and trained program. I haven't any desire to restart my career by reading the trillions of manuals to deal with Medicare. I know a lot of you guys ask me about wraparound resources. There are lots of personalities out there that deal with that. Now, whether or not they have a professional career in it or not, I don't know. I suspect that a vast majority of YouTubers, they just search around Google, find some random information that's unverified, and then they make themselves a professional, fake it till you make it. But I wouldn't suggest touring with people's houses. In conclusion of this video, before I close it out, our company is under an 8-page contractual agreement with all clients. It apprises you your state rights, your county rights, your federal rights. It also discloses all the different things that we offer for both landlords and tenants. Over a 22-year course, we probably have addressed more than 20,000 people. In a single year, it ranges between 600 to 1,000. Our success rate has gone as low as 87%, and it's gone as high as 98%, okay? My expectancy for 2023, our success rate will likely fall back into around the 90 to 91%. That means we don't have a perfect reputation. That means 10% of the time, 9 to 10% of the time, you'd been better to drive your car down the road and blow your money out the window. Okay, get drunk at a casino and stick it in a slot machine. Not every case will work. It is our strict policy to only accept cases where we believe that there's the greatest opportunity to do so. If you are a 21-year-old and you just graduated high school and your ambition is to be a Taco Bell worker and you're upset by that and believe that you're entitled to a voucher, our office will decline your case. We take on cases from real people that have real problems, that are seniors, disabled, family members, and so on. We don't take on nonsense cases. It's not to offend anybody, but I probably turn down 30 or 40 cases a week with nonsense. That, young adults have got to get out there and do what you got to do. It's not appropriate to call office about that kind of nonsense. Moving on from that, and we have to be realistic and we have to address it as it is. Beyond that, we use a CRM, which is a client management system, and we have a very, very good questionnaire. It helps us break down. Rather, in the old days, we did very long conversations. Problem is, everybody has a life story, and most people believe that these big long stories they want to tell us on the phone is not really that relevant to whether or not you're going to get a voucher or housing. So to narrate that, we're asking all the critical questions that allow us to be able to do what we need to do. Another factor that we utilize in all our contracts is we work with a law firm. Just like in a club, you go there are two types of people that go to that famous nightclub. There's those people that wait in line and may or may not be rejected getting in the club, and there's VIP. Anytime you're addressing a housing authority and trying to do the process, when a housing authority realizes you're unequivocally apprised of your rights and that you have fair representation, whether by an attorney or consultant, then you can suggest that your applications and other things that are involved in your case will be taken more seriously. In other words, Nancy that's answering the phone and she's making $1 an hour, her job is to get rid of you. However, when they know that you are adequately represented and that you're aware of your rights, it means when those things go in, then it'll likely be addressed by the executive level people there because they prefer not to make mistakes. So am I suggesting that you had a better chance dealing with me than you would on your own? Only by virtue of experience. How much does us actually having a relationship with a law firm actually help us intuitively with cases? Well, it depends. It depends on the problem. And trust me, guys, you guys bring in some of the most complicated cases. Here's an example. Yeah, I'm not going to show the client's name, but this is around 200 to 300 pages. This is one person's case file mailed to us. Okay, that's just one. I deal with this all day long, and so we have to summarize cases down to actually meet the goal. If we're not meeting our goal, and all we're doing is exploring the different ideas and going through therapy on the phone, then it's just a waste of time. So I do appreciate a lot of documentation. That's pretty extreme, right? That means it's take 3 employees a week to read all that. And then by the time we chop the turkey down to nothing, then we'll discover that the reality it is there was only 3 relevant paragraphs among 60,000 words and 300 documents. Not necessary, but sometimes important to keep accurate records. All right, moving back. BCAT, looks like your message got retracted. That has nothing to do with me. Sometimes if you use a word that YouTube doesn't like, it'll retract it. I don't actually block comments unless something is inappropriately said. As an example, on YouTube, if you say the word stool, it could be presumed that it's a medical stool. I think we all know what that means. Or it could be a bar stool. Well, YouTube doesn't make any distinction. It just sees the word and it'll block it. So more than likely, a few of you that had your comments blocked, you used a word that could be perceived either way. Moving on. Jack Toss, the landlord. Because of longevity of tenants, lease renewals are low. How can I get a new voucher increases? Well, Jack, as much as I'd love to spend 2 hours on a video explaining that, you're going to want an appointment for that, my friend. Some things cannot be absolved with a tip and a trick or a quick comment, okay? That's more likely a little bit of a process. Ugh. Y'all see my coffee mugs I never sold? YouTube had a brilliant idea. We could sell merchandise. Now, I knew that was going to go over really well with all our clients that barely have any money. let me go sell some overpriced coffee mugs. So I was the only person that ever bought my kitty mug. So they made money off of me. That's good. Even people like me get scammed in my own channel. I can guarantee you that that dollar store cup cost a nickel. It was bought from a case. They floated it straight from China, a nickel a cup. They burned a cat on it for a penny, and so they're 12 cents plus shipping at $4. They ate the other $15, went straight to that company's mortgage. I'm glad nobody bought any cat cups. Uh, Adrienne Winters. Hello, everyone. I did a consultation with this company, and I was able to get approved for housing. Thank you so much. I guess while I appreciate you giving that testimonial, we do not encourage or have anybody hop in the channel to talk about it. So I do appreciate Adriana you speaking up and giving a little testimony. I just want people to be very clear. The reputation of a company, and this is another thing with Section 8 consulting and owning it, licensing, bonding, calling the DOJ, Department of Justice, the FBI, to make sure there's no liens, holds, judgments, that we're operating contentiously in the state of Texas or across other states and can legally operate, and that we're not in investigation for any fraud. Okay, I already know the results. I actually push clients to do it. That's what keeps me surviving all these years. 10 on YouTube and 22 out there in consulting. And while all the other frauds that try to make videos, that's why they don't survive, because they've already got a court date in federal court. And then they get what we call Section 9. Y'all want me to tell you what Section 9 is? Section 9 is one of the best vouchers on the market. However, it has a caveat. Section 9 is when the federal government brings you over to a federal prison. They give you free housing. There's no rent. You just show them the voucher and they lock you in a room. You get free meal plans. So it's not even Meals on Wheels. It's meals to the slot in the door. And then they pay for utilities and health care as well. You may leave there with more problems. So there is a federally subsidized program called Section 9 for those of you that are interested in expedited housing. And they will do it in an emergency as well. They'll happily have somebody drive out, pick you up. So I don't really recommend that for any clients unless you have a loose screw. So don't do Section 9. I recommend Section 8 first. Adrian says, no, you must live in the area for a year. Oh, I see. BCAT says when you get a new voucher. Well, that depends. Actually, portability can be waived in many, many circumstances, and around 30% of PHAs or public housing authorities could potentially waive portability for a number of reasons, which means you could acquire a voucher 1,000 miles away in a place you've never been, and they waive portability, which would allow you to extract that voucher from a cornfield in Iowa, import it right back to where you are, say in Florida. That's just one of the many exploits, I guess, legal exploits to getting around long lists and waiting lines is the ability to do that. Now, there is a boilerplate policy under Code of Federal Regulation or Title 24, which allow that in most circumstances, the client would have to complete a 12-month lease, but that is not the standard. That's a standard about, I don't know, let's just say that'd be a standard about 70% of the time. So if you hypothetically went through, I don't know, 50 to 100 counties, you should have a minimum of 3 offers where you could actually get expedited on that, and then portability probably within a week. Can a voucher holder rent from a family member? The only time in which that can be a situation where a family member can rent from another is when there is a disability included. If the person that is intending on renting or utilizing their voucher to rent from a family member is not disabled, it is not permitted. So there must be inclusion of disability. But yes, and just to clear up one more thing, you cannot just rent rooms. It has to be a rental property. It must match HQS. You would be under a HAP contract, and then there must be a minimum 12-month lease. And the voucher, or in that case, the request for tenancy or RFTA would name out and spell the number of rooms and the value of the voucher, and then likely indicate under which program which is funded. So that goes into a lot more. Struggling a little bit here today with allergies. Well, guys, any other questions? BCAT goes rental property to clarify. Well, I mean, a property is a property, and then if you make it rentable, then it's a rental property. So I think that would be a yes. All right, so new videos. Live videos will likely be on Thursdays and Sundays. The rest of the week, I can't do it. I know many of you enjoyed 5 or 10 videos a week for a long time on this channel. I just can't. I've got too many things happening, too many cases. Well, I don't have too many cases. I only allow a certain number of cases per month, but just not in the position that I used to be years back where I can just make all these random videos to educate. Besides that, we have nearly 700 videos. YouTube was lovely enough to go in and about every year or two, they'll delete anywhere between 100 to 200 of my videos. The reason they do it is YouTube's new policy is if your videos aren't making us money, then after a year or two, we'll just simply delete it. I watched that happen a year ago. They went in, and I don't blame them because those videos from years ago were no longer relevant. But the main thing was YouTube was indicating to me that we're not going to host videos that aren't making them a lot of money. And just so y'all curious, the videos that I make and the ads that y'all click are not a big source of revenue. In fact, I say that it's less than half of most of your Social Security or disability payments. Okay. And then YouTube takes the other half. If YouTube didn't take 45%, then it actually would be a little better. But no, I will never become independently wealthy from making Section 8 videos. Now, if I were 12 years old with a bicycle and willing to set my hair on fire and ride my bike off the roof, I would receive billions of views and I would be an instant millionaire overnight. But when I try to address issues that are serious about housing and the welfare and care of people, that's not taken seriously and is barely monetized. And so it's taken light years just to get 25,000 up to close to 25,000 subscribers because I'm unwilling to set my hair on fire and act like a little asshole. Now, if I was prepared to do that, then I could go viral and we would have 250,000 subscribers. Again, I guess the topic of housing and vouchers and helping people is a very moot topic for YouTube. So they don't really promote it. So it's a very slow crawl. It's like being a turtle. Well, guys, I've enjoyed it, and I'm going to wrap this up. I don't see any further questions that I feel that we can resolve at this point. I'll probably see you guys again Sunday, and we're going to dig deep into that topic that I had mentioned earlier about crime-free and inclusion of sheriff departments and properties and racial profiling, and we're going to talk about some of the caveats of those properties and how you deal with that. Also, I'm going to be making a row of landlord videos to address a lot of the nonsense I see on YouTube right now. I understand there are a lot of people out here want to make videos about rental properties, flipping houses, and all that, and that's their arena. But they're starting to enter my arena, and they're giving bad advice about it, okay? You want to flip houses, you want to be an investor, that's great, but don't start with that nonsense when it comes to Section 8 because the world that you're in doesn't work in the world that I work in at all, okay? You're giving bad advice to people, and you can't just do a lot of these tips and tricks I've been seeing. So I'm going to try to address some issues on a factual basis and at the federal level so we can get some clarity for you landlords that are taking some of the wisdom of people that have now dipped into Section 8 to try to make a cute video. So, all right, guys, you enjoy your day. I'm going to enjoy my birthday in that video. And I'll let y'all know how it went. And it's been a pleasure and an honor talking with you. And for those of you that booked an appointment, and again, let me link this up for you if you'll decide that your best efforts have not been sufficient and you're still struggling with housing, maybe it's time to spend a little bit of money and work with a consultant. It doesn't have to be our office either, okay? And another thing, you don't need to pay anybody to help you. Anybody can pick up an ink pen and fill out an application, okay? There's never a pressure to do that. I mostly handle complex cases, but sometimes having the burden and losing sleep and struggling to understand the system can be a big deal. Hell, it took almost a decade just to unwind most of the policies and procedures. Another great thing about our company is we do have relationships with former and current housing authority employees across the nation, including former directors of housing authorities or PHAs. And so we have a wealth of information at our fingertips, and that's been beneficial. to be able to stay connected with the realities that we deal with and expedite people's cases. There's no reason for you guys to wait 8 and 15 years to get a voucher. However, if you have a bad case, then it probably will be 8 to 15 years. But if you have at least a survivable case, there's a pretty good opportunity. Because I know one young lady, we worked with her a little over 2 months. They waived portability, and we moved a voucher strict from Iowa. So 2 months flat. And people call, oh, yeah, it's 15 years. That guy's lying. Well, then how did that client do that? Why we posted thousands of vouchers on our community page signed by housing authorities if it wasn't possible? The only thing that's impossible is to cure people's delusions, okay, and to absolve them from paranoia. Some people have just simply lived a life where they're such a skeptic that they're unsure of whether or not they even live on Earth anymore. I'll never be able to fix that kind of illness. But what I can suggest is if my reputation led nowhere, then certainly we would have horrific reviews, and there would be a mob of pissed off people in this live video suggesting that this would be the worst decision of their life. But it's interesting, out of 700 videos, I can't even think of, the worst video had 7 dislikes. That says a lot over a decade. I don't control likes. I can't remove them either. So that's a reality. That's surviving the test of time. And then, of course, the base reality of things, you have to care. I make little more than a plumber does. You add in 2 employees, we get by. There's no circumstance where I publish a video with a Rolex, a Mercedes, and a $750,000 house. There's no circumstance in which that happens. Most of you, when you were working, that were professionals, probably make more than I do. So that only leads to one duality, and that is that I do it because I actually care. And for those that do not know, there was a period when I was a teenager to a early young adult where I spent nearly 10 years homeless. So I'm not suggesting that you walk a mile in my shoes. I'm suggesting I've already walked those miles. Okay. And I do understand the system fundamentally because I went through it. I beat that system. If there was one exceptional talent that I've had over this lifetime, nothing else, then it would be that. And that's verifiable. Well, guys, I've enjoyed it. Let me get off here, ramble a little bit further. Y'all have a great day, and thank y'all for the happy birthday comments and so on. I really enjoyed y'all doing that. It's always nice to be recognized. All right, y'all have a great day. Bye bye now.